Most people think negotiation is something that happens in boardrooms, courtrooms, or high-stakes business deals. They imagine sharp suits, tense silences, and clever tactics exchanged across polished tables. But the books that truly understand negotiation tell a quieter, more unsettling truth. You are negotiating far more often than you realize, and most of the time, you are losing without knowing a negotiation ever took place. Every salary conversation, every client agreement, every pricing decision, every boundary you fail to set is a negotiation that directly shapes your earning potential. And the difference between those who earn modestly and those who steadily increase their income is rarely talent, it is leverage, confidence, and psychological awareness. Consider a young professional early in her career. She works hard, delivers results, stays late, and assumes that effort will eventually be noticed and rewarded. When the time comes for a salary review, she enters the conversation hopeful but unprepared. She waits to be offered a number instead of anchoring one. She hesitates to ask for more, fearing she will seem ungrateful or difficult. The meeting ends politely. Her salary increases slightly. She leaves relieved, but something subtle has happened. She has accepted a ceiling that will compound quietly for years. Negotiation books exist to expose moments like this, not to teach manipulation, but to teach self-advocacy. In Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss reframes negotiation not as conflict, but as emotional intelligence under pressure. He reveals that most negotiation failures are not caused by poor logic, but by unmanaged emotion, fear of rejection, fear of silence, fear of appearing unreasonable. These fears lead people to concede too early, to soften their requests, or to accept the first offer simply to end discomfort. Over time, these small concessions quietly erode earning power. The lesson is clear. Negotiation is not about being aggressive. It is about being comfortable with tension long enough to let value surface. Another recurring theme across negotiation books is the idea of perceived value versus actual value. Many people price their work based on effort rather than impact. They think, this took me an hour, instead of, this saves my client 10 hours. Books like Getting to Yes emphasize that negotiation is about interests, not positions. When you understand what the other side truly values, speed, certainty, reduced risk, peace of mind, you stop negotiating over numbers and start negotiating over outcomes. This shift alone can dramatically increase income because people pay more readily for outcomes than for effort. Then there is the invisible negotiation most people lose before the conversation even begins, the negotiation with themselves. Wealth and negotiation books quietly agree on this point. If you believe you are replaceable, you will negotiate like someone who expects to lose. If you believe you are adding unique value, you will negotiate like someone protecting an asset. Self-perception sets the tone long before words are exchanged. This is why negotiation books spend so much time on mindset. The external negotiation rarely exceeds the limits of the internal one. Books that boost earning potential also highlight the power of preparation. Effective negotiators do not improvise. They arrive with clarity. They know their alternatives. They understand their walkaway point. They have researched market rates, industry norms, and timing. This preparation creates quiet confidence, and confidence changes behavior in subtle but decisive ways. When you know you have options, you ask differently, you pause differently, you listen differently. And those differences are felt across the table, even if never spoken aloud. Another lesson repeated across negotiation literature is the strategic use of silence. Beginners fear silence. They rush to fill it with explanations, discounts, or justifications. But books like Never Split the Difference teach that silence is not empty, it is pressure. When used deliberately, it invites the other party to reveal more, reconsider, or adjust. Silence turns negotiation from a race to agreement. into a process of discovery. And discovery is where leverage lives. Negotiation books also dismantle the myth that being nice and being well paid are mutually exclusive. In reality, clarity is kinder than avoidance. When expectations are clear, resentment fades. When boundaries are stated, respect grows. People who avoid negotiation to preserve harmony often sacrifice income while still experiencing frustration. The books argue that honest negotiation, done with empathy and firmness, strengthens relationships rather than damaging them. Long-term earning power depends on this balance. As these ideas settle in, a pattern emerges. Those who consistently increase their income do not negotiate more often, they negotiate better. They choose their moments. They understand timing. They recognize that the first offer sets an anchor, that framing shapes perception, and that walking away is sometimes the strongest move. They are not confrontational. They are deliberate. And because negotiation outcomes compound just like investments, their earning trajectory quietly diverges from those who leave value on the table year after year. Imagine someone 10 years into their career looking back. The difference between where they are and where they could have been is not a single dramatic moment, but a series of conversations handled timidly, postponed indefinitely, or avoided altogether. Negotiation books exist to interrupt that pattern. They remind us that earning potential is not fixed. It is negotiated continuously, whether consciously or not. And this is where the art of negotiation reveals its deeper meaning. It is not merely a skill for extracting more money. It is a discipline for articulating value, respecting oneself, and navigating power dynamics with awareness rather than fear. When practiced consistently, it reshapes not only income, but identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who waits to be chosen and start seeing yourself as someone who participates actively in defining their worth. As we move deeper into this subject, the question shifts from how do I negotiate better to something more fundamental. What kind of negotiator do I become when my earning potential depends on my ability to stay calm, clear, and confident under pressure? Because the books are clear on one thing, techniques matter, but temperament matters more. And it is at this point where strategy meets psychology that the most powerful lessons of negotiation begin to emerge. Lessons that show how those who earn more are not louder or more aggressive, but more self-aware, more prepared, and more willing to sit with discomfort long enough for better outcomes to unfold. And this is where the next chapter truly begins. As we step into the deeper patterns that separate transactional negotiators from those who quietly and consistently expand their income over a lifetime, learning not just what to say, but who to be in the moments that decide your value. And that journey continues forward, moves forward, like a steady breath taken before speaking, controlled, deliberate, and grounded in self-awareness rather than urgency. And this is where negotiation stops being a collection of techniques and becomes a way of operating in the world. Because once you understand that every negotiation is ultimately a conversation about value, you realize that the real work happens long before words are exchanged. The highest earners described in negotiation books share one defining trait. They are comfortable with discomfort. They do not rush to agreement to escape tension. They do not confuse silence with rejection or hesitation with failure. Instead, they treat discomfort as information. When the other side pauses, deflects, or resists, effective negotiators listen closely. Resistance is not a wall. It is a signal. It tells you where the real issue lives. And those who earn more over time are those who learn to stay present long enough to understand what is truly being negotiated. Books like Never Split the Difference and Getting to Yes converge on this deeper insight. People rarely negotiate over money alone. They negotiate over fear, uncertainty, status, timing, and control. When you address only the number, you limit the conversation. When you address the underlying concern, risk, deadlines, reputation, trust, you expand the pie. This is why great negotiators ask better questions than average ones. They are curious rather than combative. They slow the conversation down rather than speeding it up, and in doing so, they uncover levers that others never see. Another critical lesson that boosts earning potential is learning when not to negotiate. This may sound counterintuitive, but negotiation books emphasize selectivity. Not every opportunity deserves your energy. Not every client deserves your flexibility. High earners understand that saying yes too easily is itself a negotiation mistake. Every time you accept unfavorable terms to avoid discomfort, you signal something about your value. Over time, these signals accumulate. Negotiation is not just about single outcomes, it is about reputation. And reputation negotiates on your behalf long before you enter the room. As experience grows, skilled negotiators also learn to detach emotionally from outcomes. This does not mean they stop caring, it means they stop clinging. They know their walk-away point, and they respect it. Books repeatedly stress this discipline because nothing weakens a negotiating position more than the need to win at all costs. When you can genuinely walk away, your words change, your posture changes, your timing changes. The other side feels it, even if they cannot name it. And paradoxically, this calm detachment often leads to better offers. Over time, negotiation becomes less about tactics and more about identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who clarifies expectations early, who addresses misalignment before it becomes resentment, who values fairness but does not confuse fairness with self-sacrifice. This identity shift is subtle, but it compounds powerfully. Income grows not because you ask for more once, but because you stop under-asking consistently. You stop accepting vague promises. You stop trading long-term value for short-term comfort. When you look back at the books that shape great negotiators, a single pattern emerges. Earning potential expands when self-respect becomes visible. Not loud, not arrogant, visible, through preparation, through calm language, through the willingness to pause, through the courage to name value without apology. These are not dramatic moves. They are quiet signals that say, I understand what I bring to the table and I am willing to protect it. And this is the quiet ending to the story of negotiation. Those who earn more are not those who dominate conversations, but those who understand them. They do not chase agreement, they invite alignment. They do not fear rejection, they respect boundaries. And because negotiation never really ends, it simply evolves across roles, careers, and stages of life. The skills you build here compound just like investments. Each conversation slightly reshapes your trajectory. Each boundary slightly elevates your position. Each moment of clarity slightly increases your earning potential. If this story resonated with you, pause and reflect on the last negotiation you accepted too quickly or avoided entirely. That moment holds a lesson. Share what stood out to you, because awareness is the first step toward change. And if you want to keep exploring how psychology, communication, and self-mastery shape financial outcomes, stay connected. Subscribe, follow, and return. Because earning more is rarely about working harder. It is about learning to speak, listen, and decide with intention in the moments that quietly define your worth.